CEO Andy Jassy said he is not removing the controversial film from the company's website. Rams defensive end Aaron Donald has a high ankle sprain and will not play in Sunday's home game against Seattle. This will be the first game Donald has missed due to an injury in his 9-year career. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
Four racial arsonists set LA City Hall on fire. And everybody is running out of the building straight to KBLA Talk 1580.
I am pleased to welcome LA City Councilman Mike Bonin to this program. Councilman, how are you, sir?
Hello. Thank you, Tavis.
Councilmember Curran Price, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
I'm well, Tavis. Thank you. Good to be with you and your listeners.
I am pleased to have LA City Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez on this program. How are you today, ma'am?
Good morning, Tavis.
Councilman O'Farrell, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Tavis. So glad to join you this morning.
Councilman Koretz, welcome to this program, sir. How are you?
I'm honored to be on your show. Still in shock from the events of the last few days.
Marquise Harris Dawson, good morning.
Good morning, Dominique, and good morning to the KBLA family.
Councilmember Heather Hutt, good morning.
Good morning, Dominique.
I am pleased to welcome the new president of the LA City Council, Paul Kikoy. Mr. President, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Tavis. I'm well. Thank you very much.
Holding all politicians accountable to you. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tavis Smiley. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. In case you missed our first hour, we made a big announcement in our one today. Some of the acts that will be joining us live on stage for our Welcome Home Mayor-elect Karen Bass event in historic Leimert Park on Saturday, December the 10th. You're hearing behind me, underneath me, the voice of the brilliant hit-making Brian McKnight. Brian McKnight live on stage with us, KBLA Talk 1580, Saturday, December the 10th. We'll also be joined live on stage for a performance by Guapale and Club Nouveau. Those hits, Rumors and Lean On Me, they got some hits, and so does Guapale. So we're excited to have Club Nouveau, Guapale, and Brian McKnight all join us live on stage for performances celebrating the election of the first woman and the second African-American as chief executive of the city, Karen Bass. That all happens Saturday, December the 10th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you'd like to be a vendor for that event, hit us right now, info@smileyAudiomedia.com. Once again, that's info@smileyAudiomedia.com for all the details you need about how to join us as a vendor for this great celebration of Karen Bass as the new mayor of the city of Los Angeles. Once again, Saturday, December 10, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Karen Bass will be live on stage with us around these acts, these performances from Brian and Guapale and Club Nouveau. Karen Bass live on stage at exactly 11 a.m. Saturday, December the 10th. So make plans to join us. Bring your family and your friends out to Leimert Park that day. It's going to be a great day here in Leimert Park. In this hour of our program, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, then you remember the cartridge era of video games. Without cartridges, games like Super Mario Brothers, Mega Man, Sonic the Hedgehog, Madden NFL, and Street Fighter II would never have been possible in this now multi-billion-dollar industry. And without Jerry Lawson, a black man, cartridges would not exist. Black tech and media entrepreneur Anthony Frazier joins us now to tell us all about who Jerry Lawson was and why this unsung hero in gaming history still has his game-changing creation sort of hidden behind a wall of white. I'm pleased to welcome Anthony Frazier to this program. Anthony, how are you, sir?
How you doing? Thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it, man, and just much respect. I grew up, watching your show, man.
I appreciate you for saying that. It's kind of you, and I'm delighted to have you on our program today. I must tell you this, and this won't surprise you or the audience, but I am always, on the one hand, humbled, on the other hand, just a bit embarrassed when I learn more and more about great African-American inventors. When I learn different parts of black history, I consider myself a student of history. And of course, I can't know everything. I'm not God. I'm not all wise. I'm not all knowing. And so I'm on a journey of learning like everybody else. But I always feel some sort of way when I discover that African Americans had a particular impact and a unique imprint on a particular industry that I am totally unaware of. I had never heard of this brother, Jerry Lawson. It kind of reminds me of how many of us felt when we saw the movie Hidden Figures. And the reason that movie did so well is because so many black people just did not know the backstory of the role these black women played in NASA and making that excursion possible. And so whenever I, again, learn stuff like this, I pour myself into it. I lean into it because I just feel really weird that, again, black folk have done so many things that we black folk are unaware of. So I want to spend this hour talking about, again, for those who grew up in the 80s and 90s, everybody played video games. We all played them. And I've got 7 younger brothers, and I'm sure many of them are listening right now. I told them to tune in today so they could learn the history of the guy who made it possible to play all those games they were playing then and all the games they still play to this day. So we're going to spend some time here talking about Jerry Lawson. So let's start there. Tell me about Jerry Lawson.
Oh, man. Well, Jerry Lawson is, a guy that was, bigger than life, man. This guy was over 6 foot tall, sported an afro. When people seen him, they assumed he was playing for a football team or something like that. And he was soft-spoken and a jokester. He was a guy who loved to joke and loved to, make everyone laugh that was in the room. But he was a genius at the same time. This Jerry Lawson was actually born in Queens, Queens, New York, and studied science as a kid. His favorite scientist was George Washington Carver. This guy really, really, really loved science, and his parents really encouraged him to pursue it. And so he was building at 13 years old, building a radio station in his bedroom, with antennas outside of the window. Broadcasting, actually went and got a license, and to broadcast directly out of his bedroom.
Okay, hold on. So we are on a black owned and operated radio station right now called KBLA Talk 1580, and I knew what it took, and I know what it takes to make this thing work every day. And again, we're not even 2 years old yet. We're still in startup phase, and I'm thinking of all that it's taken us to get to this point. And you're telling me that Jerry Lawson at age 13 built his own radio station in his bedroom and went out and got the FCC to give him a license to broadcast from his house?
This guy was doing it. I don't know if he got the FCC license. He might have got something local.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but but he definitely, cleared the channels to be able to do what he was doing. And years later, attended school, but he never finished school. This guy never finished school and went straight into the government. Today we talk about, people just having that knowledge and being smart enough to get a job without having a college degree. We talk about a lot about that in the tech industry today.
Right.
But this was the 70s. This was like the late 60s, early 70s. And this guy was able to land jobs, with the government, land jobs with high tech institutions with no college degree. That's how much he knew. That's how smart he was, and that's how he was so proven in what he was doing.
Yeah, well, if you're building radio stations at age 13, then I'm not sure. I'm not sure you need to go to Harvard or Yale or Purdue or Rose-Hulman, great engineering schools. I'm not sure, or Carnegie Mellon. I'm not sure you need to do that if you can build a radio station at 13. We're just getting started in this hour talking to Anthony Frazier, black tech and media entrepreneur in his own right. He created and narrated Raising the Game, an Audible original podcast. In his podcast, he wonders aloud why so few of us understand Lawson's impact. It's because of that podcast, Raising the Game, that we became aware of Anthony Frazier and then became aware of Jerry Lawson and want you to be aware of both of them. We'll continue our conversation about Jerry Lawson with Anthony Frazier and black folk in tech writ large. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
According to the National Black Justice Institute, a majority of Black LGBTQ plus students experience harassment in school because of their sexual orientation, gender expression, and racial identity. This reality is compounded by the fact there are few safe, affirming spaces for Black LGBTQ plus middle and high school youth in our communities. On December 3rd, 2022, African American LGBTQ plus youth from the ages 14 to 18 are invited to participate in a fun and culturally enriching youth retreat at the Stone View Nature Center in Culver City from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The event will focus on mental health, social justice leadership, safe space creation, yoga, music, drumming, and art making. Breakfast, lunch, and gift items will be provided to all youth participants. For more information, check out the event website at womensleadershipla.org or call 323-304-9578.
If you're a Los Angeles Department of Water and Power residential customer, listen to this. LADWP now offers convenient monthly billing through the new Level Pay program. Level Pay helps you budget for your utility bill with a predictable monthly amount that can also include past due balances. You'll know exactly how much you need to pay each month. Don't wait. Sign up today for Level Pay by calling 1-800-DIAL-DWP. That's 1-800-DIAL-DWP.
KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you a happy holiday and wants to bless you with one night only. A Wonder Winter's Night presented by Stevie Wonder's House Full of Toys benefit concert. Saturday, December 17th at Microsoft Theater. Download the KBLA Talk 1580.com mobile app to enter to win a pair of tickets. This has been a community call to action brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580.
Where can you smell fresh pine from the curbside pickup line? Lowe's, actually. Explore the holiday fun and check off every gift on your list during Winterfest at Lowe's, where you can save $100 on a Blackstone 30-inch flat-top grill, now $299. Or your choice of a DeWalt 20-volt max brushless drill kit or impact driver kit for just $99. Experience all of the festivities of Winterfest now, only at Lowe's, home to any possibility. Offer valid through 12/21 while supplies last.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed. Our guest is Anthony Frazier. We're talking about Jerry Lawson, a name you've never heard of until today, but you have now heard of Jerry Lawson, and we're talking about the huge impact he had on the gaming industry. So, Anthony, right back to our story. So, after building a radio station at the age of 13, then, as you mentioned earlier, Jerry goes on and finishes high school, does not finish college. Tell me, though, about how his career starts to take off.
Oh, yeah, man. He ended up actually flying out to Silicon Valley because he landed a job at a company called Fairchild. And it was a semiconductor company. So in Silicon Valley, that's all they were creating with these like semiconductors that were doing, that most of your electronics pretty much run on. That's what gave birth to Silicon Valley. And so while he was working, at Fairchild, he was pretty much a salesman. He was, he didn't have like a technical super engineering job at the time. He had all of his knowledge, but he was pretty much a glorified salesman. But it allowed him to build his network. So while he was going, to these different companies and telling them about all of these things that Fairchild was building, he was meeting so many people. You know, at this time, he was bumping heads with Steve Jobs. He was rubbing shoulders. He was actually part of the Homebrew Computer Club, which was the actual club that Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak met, and they created Apple, you know, together at. And so he was like one of the only black men that was really in the scene. He was meeting up with all of the people who knew who was important in Silicon Valley. But what happened when his career started to take off, what launched his career was that the Fairchild, they created a computer chip called the F8 microprocessor. And what Jerry got a hold of it, he took it home. And he said, I'm going to do something with this. So he went into his garage and started to tinker with it and ended up making an arcade game called Demolition Derby. And that went on to actually become a bigger game, but that's a different story. But Demolition Derby, and he even had a steering wheel with it. So his son actually told me he used to go in the garage and play with the steering wheel and play with the game and have fun in the garage with it until one day he saw that his father took it to an arcade, to an actual pizza shop. What happened was that his job, Fairchild, found out about what Jerry was doing in his garage, and they called him in to have a meeting. And Jerry was probably, you can imagine, pretty fearful. He thought he was going to lose his job. And instead, they told him, no, we're not firing you. We want you to lead the division to help us get into the video game business. You know, and that's where his career in gaming really started, because they were like, we want to get into the video game business. We're doing these semiconductors, but you figured out how to make this microchip do something else. So now we feel like we can do the same thing. Let's do it on a larger level. So they made him the leader, the head of the video game division almost immediately. And that was the first time that a black man ever, you know, led any video game department ever in history. He became the first, you know, black engineer in video games, but also the first black executive.
Yeah. Let me jump in. Let me jump in right quick. I'm sorry, Anthony. Let me jump in right quick because I want to, before I get too far afield here, and we get too far down the road, I should say, in this story. Let me come back to this arcade thing. I can't imagine that there were a bunch of brothers who were developing games that were being played in arcades. And I recall, I'm old enough to remember when arcades became the thing, and people would, you know, after school, on the weekends, hang out in arcades. Now everything is in your house at your fingertips, of course, and you can play games with folk around the world, you know, on the computer. I get that now. But let me just go back right quick, though, to this arcade. That's a big deal when you're building a game in your garage and it literally ends up being used at a pizza parlor and in arcades around the country. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal. And he was even developing mechanisms to help people, to help arcades. See, back in that time, people were stealing money from the arcades. They figured out how to, you know, jiggle the switch and kind of reuse the same quarter and all of those different things. He actually created a mechanism that will stop people from stealing quarters and stealing games from the machine as well. So he was more than just an innovator with what we're going to talk about today. He did a lot of things for the industry. He actually helped to stop, you know, people from stealing games from arcades.
Well, I know the good white folk love that one. They love when a brother helps you hold on to your coins, man.
He did that in a bigger way too. We'll talk about that. He did that in a big way.
Yeah. Now go ahead. We'll come back. Go ahead and make the pivot for me right now. Pivot for me. Go ahead. Do it. Give it to me.
Yeah, on what he did?
Yeah, you say about the money piece. You said he did it in a much bigger way. Make your point for me.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what happened was years later, you know, Activision, which is $1 billion company. Matter of fact, Microsoft is now trying to acquire Activision for $69 billion, the largest tech acquisition in America. Activision, that same company, needed Jerry Lawson in the 70s to prove that they can make games. You know, they can actually make games without stealing from Atari, because Atari was had a big lawsuit against Activision saying that they used their intellectual property to make games.
Sure.
So they had to go to Jerry Lawson and say, hey, Jerry, we need you to prove that this can be done without looking at the manual. Jerry reverse engineered the Atari, built a game for the Atari without any instruction and proved to the court, allowing Activision to win their lawsuit and then become an actual company. So there would not be an Activision being bought for $69 billion today if Jerry Lawson didn't prove that they can actually make games without the help of Atari.
So his brother went to court and saved that company.
Pretty much.
I love that answer. Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, before I get too far into this story, because this is fascinating for me. Again, just learn. It's like Hidden Figures, as I said. You're learning about something that you didn't know, done by a brother that's impacted this, $1 trillion business, as it were, essentially. You mentioned two names that everybody recognizes: Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. And Jerry Lawson was literally rubbing elbows with these guys back in the day. We know their names. We don't know the name Jerry Lawson. But I've read that he had some thoughts, of course, about Wozniak and Steve Jobs. So tell me, back in the day, as they were on their ascension and Jerry was on his ascension, he's the only brother in the room rubbing elbows with Jobs and Wozniak in the pre-Apple days. What did Jerry Lawson think of Wozniak and Jobs?
I think he didn't think he wasn't too fond of Wozniak. He thought he was stuck up.
Mm-hmm.
He thought he was just a young kid. And matter of fact, according to Jerry, Wozniak approached him for a job, and he said he denied Wozniak a job as well. And so I actually reached out to Steve Wozniak, and Steve Wozniak denies that that's ever true. Matter of fact, Steve Wozniak denies he ever knew who Jerry was.
Why would he do that?
I have no idea. There's a lot of people who for some reason, and this is where it comes that Hidden Figure, comic really starts to shine, because as doing the research for this book, I called so many people and they kind of denied they ever knew him. Even though there's actual proof that he was in the same room as a lot of these individuals. But there were some people who couldn't deny him. Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari, knew who Jerry was, and he gave him praises. He said if there was a video game Hall of Fame, Jerry Lawson should be in it. This is the founder of Atari, Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Chuck E. Cheese. He knew who Nolan was. He knew who Jerry was. So I wonder. You still have people who acknowledged him.
Yeah, I wonder what is to be gained, and I'm not naive in asking this, but what is to be gained by not remembering, by not acknowledging this brother and what he did back in the day? It almost seems like a malign neglect, a deliberate whitewashing of history.
Right. Yeah. I think John McAfee, the antivirus, the guy who created the antivirus software that went and blew up. That's another person who Jerry Lawson's son, Anderson, said used to call the house all the time. When I got in touch with John McAfee's people, John McAfee actually threatened me. He said, "Don't call me again." And so it just got to the point where we were like, what's going on? And what the conclusion I kind of came up with is that Jerry helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
Jerry helped a lot of people. And there's so much stuff that's probably off the record, but Jerry helped a lot of individuals. He was very intelligent. And I think that just had something to do with it. I think it was a mix of envy and a mix of just people just trying to hide that history of being helped by a black man.
No, professional envy ain't no joke, man. Trust me. I've learned that in my own career. Professional envy is not to be taken lightly and not to be played with. You mentioned how he felt about Steve Wozniak. The bigger name, of course, is Steve Jobs. Anything that we know about how he felt about Steve Jobs, who he rubbed elbows with back in the day?
He didn't. Nothing on the record. Nothing on the record. We know that they were in the same club, the computer clubs together, but we don't really necessarily have anything on record as far as like how he felt about Steve Jobs in particular. Yeah. I think he just thought he was a playboy, and a lot of people did back then.
Sure.
About Steve Jobs. He wasn't the tech, super, holy figure in tech that people kind of hold him up to today. He was a wild guy back in those days. So I think a lot of people had the same opinion.
Yep. So he ends up being called into his boss's office one day at Fairchild. because they've gotten word that he's building arcade machines in his garage. He thinks he's about to be fired. To the contrary, and wisely, they don't fire him, but they bring him in and make him the head of that division and put him in charge. What happens after that?
Yeah, after that, they pretty much say they want to make a video game console. You know, they want to make the first video game console that can use cartridges. And so a lot of people give Jerry credit for the video game cartridge, which isn't necessarily 100% true. See, what happened was there was these guys from Connecticut who had a prototype that didn't quite work. And so Jerry actually got his hands on that prototype, and he was able to make it work. And once he was able to make it work, they figured, let's implement this into a console that can be in everyone's home. And for the first time in history, the video game, you can change games. Because if you think about all the other video game systems, the games came on the console itself. Whatever game was on that box, that's all you had. There was no switching. There was no getting a new game. There was no nothing. Whatever came on that box, that's all you had. When Jerry released the Fairchild Channel F, which was the first video game console that can use cartridges, that was the first time in history that you can actually switch to another game. And switch to another one. Nobody else can do that. It was also the first time that you can pause your games. A lot of people don't talk about that. Jerry also innovated the pause button. You know, so the next time, you know, kids are playing games and they pause it, that was Jerry who started that. He also was the first person to implement artificial intelligence in a game. So when you're playing against a computer, that was Jerry as well. A lot of people, yeah.
No, what did those? I got news, traffic, and sports here in about a minute. Let me ask you right quick. Okay. What did those creations alone, the ones you just laid out, what did those creations from Jerry Lawson do for the financial fortunes of Fairchild?
Well, the Fairchild Channel F, well, that's a longer story, but the Fairchild Channel F went on to have a really successful launch. But you know, the Atari came out shortly after, copying a lot of what the Fairchild did, and, you know, that was it. After that Super Bowl commercial that the Atari had, there was nothing that Fairchild could do.
No, I get it. And that in part answers the question, at least, as I said, in part, about why we don't know the name Jerry Lawson, because what Jerry Lawson created for Fairchild, Atari took to a whole nother level. And again, as Anthony said, when Atari put that commercial out on Super Bowl Sunday, and the whole world got to know this thing called Atari, the rest, as they say, is history. But again, if there's no Jerry Lawson making it possible for Fairchild, Atari ain't got nothing to improve upon, and history reads a little bit differently. But nonetheless, we now know the name Jerry Lawson. There's a great deal more to talk about with Anthony Frazier when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate you. Thank you for turning us on this year. Happy holidays.
Wow! Mommy's kissing Santa Claus!
I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A Starbucks employee is suspended after a black woman had monkey written as her name on her order. Now, this happened in Annapolis, Maryland, the week before Thanksgiving. The woman's actual name is Monique. She said her heart dropped when she saw monkey written on her drink. That eventually led to a discussion with a male barista who said it was a mistake. African-American rapper Kanye West is hoping to revive his shutdown Donda Academy as he looks for an alternative location to house the school in California. According to TMZ, Kanye is negotiating with the pastor of Cornerstone Christian Church in Northridge to lease some of his church space for the Donda Academy. Pastor Ronald Nagin claims he's had 3 meetings with the rapper in the past month, and the church's lawyers are currently writing a contract to send to Kanye. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Crash in Torrance on the 405 southbound at Artesia Boulevard is blocking the left-hand lane, and traffic is messed up starting at Inglewood Avenue. Had a big vehicle that stalled out in Cerritos on the 91 westbound at Norwalk Boulevard. It made it out of lanes to the right-hand shoulder, but it's still kind of slow from Knott Avenue. And we had a crash in Montebello blocking lanes on the 60 westbound at Paramount Boulevard. They also made it to the right-hand shoulder, but it's still slow from Azusa Avenue. Watch for a vehicle that stalled out in Anaheim on the 91 eastbound before Euclid Street. Middle lane blocked off there.
Need an accident attorney by your side? All you got to do is call the accident guys.
Injured in a car accident or at work? The accident guys have helped over 5,000 injured clients with an impressive winning record.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers got a strong performance from LeBron James in a 17-point win over Portland. LeBron had 31 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. The Lakers are 6-2 in their last 8 games. The Clippers lose by 13 at Utah. The anti-Semitic documentary that got Kyrie Irving in trouble is still available on Amazon. Despite public pressure, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy said he is not removing the controversial film from the company's website. Rams defensive end Aaron Donald has a high ankle sprain and will not play in Sunday's home game against Seattle. This will be the first game Donald has missed due to an injury in his 9-year career. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
Congratulations to this week's KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. LA County Department of Children and Family Services. LA County Department of Children and Family Services promotes child safety and well-being by partnering with communities to strengthen family. Congratulations, LA County DCFS.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour, where KBLA's very own Lynn Richardson was a keynote speaker. Here's what Lynn had to say when asked what the top 3 tips were for someone beginning their journey to financial freedom.
The first one would definitely absolutely be to write what it is that you want. The things that I wrote when I was broke, down, under the ground, didn't know how I was going to make it, are happening today. And they're actually bigger than I ever thought. The dreams that I had, it didn't seem possible, but I had the wherewithal to write it. Thoughts disentangle themselves when they pass through your fingertips. So when you see what it is that you want, it becomes more real. The second thing is to speak what you seek until you see what you say. Get rid of haters, naysayers, blockers, and crab barrel leg pullers. Don't get mad at them. Just detach and find your crew. And the third thing is to get started at JP Morgan Chase. And get all of those accounts that you need to save, to spend, and to pay your bills.
KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to announce a can't-miss community event.
It's a celebration.
Welcome home, Mayor-elect Karen Bass.
You gotta be kidding me.
On Saturday, December 10th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., join KBLA Talk 1580 in Leimert Park at the intersection of Leimert and Vernon for this free public event as we celebrate Mayor-elect Bass's historic victory. There'll be entertainment, food trucks, and a diverse array of vendors, along with attendance and participation from community leaders, elected officials, celebrities, business owners, and other notables. KBLA Talk 1580 will host Mayor-elect Bass on the main stage at 11 a.m. as we reflect on the importance of this moment and what it means for the Black community, women, and all Angelinos who believe in the limitless potential of our amazing city. We look forward to celebrating with Mayor-elect Karen Bass and you, Saturday, December 10th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the intersection of Leimert and Vernon. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
We gon' celebrate your party with you. Come on now.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
I'm Tavis Smiley. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to have you with us in this hour. Our guest in this hour is Anthony Frazier, a Black tech and media entrepreneur in his own right, created and narrates the podcast Raising the Game, an Audible original podcast. We'll discuss that a bit more in a moment. But most of our hour today with Anthony is spent trying to get you to understand about the legacy of one Jerry Lawson. In case you just tuned in, if there is no Jerry Lawson, there is no gaming industry as we know it today. And we've been explaining this sort of hidden figures individual named Jerry Lawson. I should mention that today would have been Jerry Lawson's 82nd birthday. Yesterday, we did a celebration and a tribute to Shirley Chisholm, who would have been 98, as I recall, yesterday. But today would have been Jerry Lawson's 82nd birthday. And because his legacy is so grand in the gaming industry, if you type in google.com right now, trust me, if you type in google.com right now, he is the Google Doodle of the day. Type in google.com and you will see Jerry Lawson, his image, pop up. His doodle image. He is the Google Doodle. Say that fast 3 times. Google Doodle, Google Doodle, Google Doodle of the day, Jerry Lawson. So just type in google.com. And so as time goes on, if you're fortunate, if you're lucky, if you're blessed, history does remember you. They eventually get around to understanding your story, to celebrating your contributions, even if you're black. It just takes a while, right? It takes a while for these stories to come out, and then the book comes out, and then the movie comes out, and it makes a bunch of money, and everybody realizes why they should have done it a long time ago. It just takes time, oftentimes, to honor the grand creations and creativity and contributions of black folk. But I'm just so thrilled that when you type google.com today, you see the Google Doodle of the day is a brother named Jerry Lawson, who would have turned 82 today, and that is why on this day, December 1st, we are pleased to be joined in conversation by Anthony Frazier to celebrate the contributions of Jerry Lawson. Anthony, before I get back into our conversation, how do you feel when you again go to Google and you see that one of your heroes, Jerry Lawson, is finally getting some of the respect he deserves?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a good feeling. It was just something that, when I, was in Silicon Valley years ago, I actually went to his memorial service. That's where I learned who he was, because I didn't even know who he was. I was in a memorial service of a guy I never even heard of. And so
how's that possible? How are you at a memorial service for a guy you never heard of?
I saw a flyer. I was in San Jose. I was out in Silicon Valley because I got accepted into a tech accelerator program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd never been in Silicon Valley before prior to that. And so me and my co-founder at the time, we found this flyer, and I was like, well, I got to be here. Because we built our whole career off video games. So we were like, we got to be there, man. I never heard of this guy. And so I was just in there hearing his story, hearing people talk about him and the contributions he made. And when I left that room that day, I said, you know what? I don't know when, I don't know how, but one day I'm going to make his story, a little bit more known. And years later, I started my own podcast company and got the opportunity to tell Jerry's story. That was the first thing we did. We said, I was like, I get this deal with Audible. We struck a deal with them. They said, what story you want to tell? I said, I got one. So,
I am struck. Life just moves in interesting and funny ways. I'm just struck by the fact that you saw a flyer, and based off of a flyer, because you built your career off video games, you decided to go to this memorial service for a guy you had never heard of, never met, did not know. Here you are sitting in the back of the room at this memorial service, just basically learning about who Jerry Lawson is, and that sparks your interest. I mean, I've been to many memorial services in my life, but never for somebody I didn't know. But I'm fascinated by that story, Anthony.
Yeah. It was eye-opening for me. I took the opportunity. I just felt like there's no way I can't go to this.
Yeah.
There's just no way I can't be in the room knowing how much video games impacted my life up until that point. I had to know who this guy was, and that's when I just really dug into the research. Yeah. So in the book we did with Audible, I spoke to everybody. I spoke to the founder, the creator of Pong, the creator of Atari, to everyone. The people who were on his team, they even let me know stories about how he tried to get things approved, and they wouldn't even get it approved because he had to sit in the office of the FCC for hours, days. And just hearing stories from white men about how Jerry had to, overcome so much.
Yeah. Tell me a bit more about that. What have you learned about? We all saw we've raised it 3 or 4 times already. We all saw the movie Hidden Figures, and we saw what those sisters back in that era had to deal with because they were women and because they were black women. So as you talk to all these white folk and others who knew Jerry Lawson, was around Jerry Lawson, and Jerry's the only brother, and he's, as you said, a big guy. He's a big guy. People thought he was a football player. So not only is he black, but he's imposing, and that scares white people. When you black and imposing, it double scares them. So tell me what you learned about the ways in which he was maltreated or made to sit for hours in hallways before he got meetings and got things approved. Just tell me the price that Jerry Lawson paid, what he had to endure for being an imposing black man in the late 60s and early 70s.
Man, people just wouldn't, they, like you said, they just feared this guy, and one of his partners even told us, like, hey, I heard him on a phone call, and I said, hey, man, what a wonderful guy. And then when he saw him in person, he was taken aback. He was like, wait, who's this guy? This big, tall, bigger-than-life individual. Mm-hmm. People eventually came to love him. But the biggest thing that I want to highlight from how I feel like Jerry was mistreated, if you look at the patent right now for the cartridge, mm-hmm. and you look at the patents around the console and all the technology, you see not only the guys who made the prototypes names, but you also see the names of all the individuals who were on Jerry's team. There's only one guy missing from the patents, and that's Jerry himself. So I can always compare it to Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs, his name is on thousands of patents. And Steve Jobs wasn't an engineer. Steve Jobs was a visionary. Mm-hmm. So that means he didn't put his hands on the actual things that he got his name on as far as being on the patent. Mm-hmm. He just led the company. He led the teams. He led the division. So here's Jerry Lawson, a black man who did the same things, led the team, led the innovations, was an actual engineer, put his hands on the product, innovated the product. But for some reason, his name isn't on one single patent. And
what is that? What is that reason? I don't get it.
Racism. At this point, it's just that simple. It's that simple. I don't know who we can point at as far as like who made those decisions, but it's just his name is missing from the patents, and this guy led the team. He was the leader of the team. None of these things will be happening without him. But yet his name isn't on one single patent. And I think that is the injustice. And that's the reason why he went missing from history.
Yeah. If that issue, just for those who are listening who are trying to understand, as I am, how that problem would be corrected, if that issue could be addressed and corrected, I'm just curious, who would ultimately be responsible for getting Jerry Lawson's name posthumously on those patents?
It would probably have to be Fairchild, the company, and I don't think they're as active as they used to be, or even if they're even still alive to this day. It would have to be the Fairchild company that would have to go back and correct some of those mistakes.
Yeah, that seems like that's not just a mistake. That seems like a malign neglect, not a mistake, but malign neglect, and it is tragic that we can celebrate Jerry today on what would have been his 82nd birthday. As I said, he's the Google Doodle of the day. So even Google understands how significant Jerry Lawson was. Little by little, he's coming into his own years after his passing. But for his name not to be on patents, on the things that he helped create, again, it's beyond egregious. It's ugly. It's vicious. I'm looking for the right word here. It's America. How about that? We'll continue with Anthony Frazier when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Huffington Post reports a mental health crisis among black students. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News. Rates of depression and anxiety among black students have been increasing at a staggering rate. A study from the National Institute of Health found that approximately 34% of black students reported feeling so depressed in the last year that it was difficult to function. Black students attending HBCUs have also been dealing with additional stress of bomb threats at their universities and suddenly not having access to abortion services in the wake of Roe versus Wade. According to the CDC, black women in the U.S. are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications, and abortion restrictions could increase the maternal mortality rate for black women. Huffington Post also reports that the quest to raising awareness for mental illness among black Americans is a priority. Tell us what you think about this story and more on all socials at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, this is Stevie Wonder, and nothing can stop this love. It's back. Join me at my 24th House Full of Toys benefit concert, Saturday, December 17th at the Microsoft Theater.
Please bring an unwrapped toy.
Or a gift of joy, and make this a day of giving to the young and old.
Stevie Wonder.
My 24th House Full of Toys benefit concert.
Tickets on sale now at AXS.com.
Produced by Wonder Productions and promoted by AEG.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours, now through December 20th. All of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net, and together we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tavis Smiley. He is Anthony Frazier. We are talking about Jerry Lawson. I was reading some messages during that break, Anthony, and one of them says, sounds like Anthony heard God's call via the flyer to add more volume to Jerry Lawson's mighty work. Have you ever processed it that way, Anthony?
No, I never did process it that way. I never did, but yeah, I definitely feel like it was meant to be, for sure.
Yeah. We are all called upon to do things sometimes that are greater than we are, and oftentimes we don't understand why we're being called upon that. But my grandmother, Big Mama, used to put it this way. People always say, well, yeah, I was lucky, or I was in the right place at the right time. All kinds of anecdotes, all kinds of phrases and formulations that we use to try to explain certain things. And my Big Mama, in her broken English, would always say, baby, it ain't no good luck, it's a good God. That's Big Mama for you. It ain't no good luck, it's a good God. And so you were where you were supposed to be when you were supposed to be there. And because you were there and heeded the call that you heard, whatever that was, to go to that memorial service because of your work and your witness and your creating and narrating Raising the Game, this Audible original podcast that tells the story of one Jerry Lawson. Others are starting to understand his grand contributions, and that is why, in part, he is the Google Doodle of the day. Jerry Lawson, a black man we'd never heard of prior to today, and a black man whose name still does not exist on the patents, many of the patents that are attached to the things that he helped to create and oversaw the department that created them. But no respect as yet for Jerry Lawson, not at the level he deserves, but little by little, perhaps we will get there. Let me ask you a broader question, I should say, Anthony. Given the icon, given the legend that Jerry Lawson was, were he around today to see the status of black folk in technology, he would see what?
I think he'll see there's still more work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Today there's still a struggle for diversity at tech companies. There's still a struggle for black companies to actually get funding with venture capital dollars. That was something he struggled with. He wanted to start his own video game company after he left Fairchild. He eventually got frustrated and said, I'm going to do this on my own. And, ran into a lot of those same issues that we're still running into today. Black companies getting funding in Silicon Valley and outside of Silicon Valley. So I think we've definitely made progress in tech. And we're still making great contributions. We still see individuals doing great things. But there's still many of the same systemic problems that held us back in the 70s still exist right now today, which is unfortunate.
Well, there's no grass growing under Anthony Frazier's feet here. He, again, is not just the creator and narrator of Raising the Game, this Audible original podcast. He's also the CEO of ABF Creative, an award-winning kids and family podcast company, and he's the author of the critically acclaimed Don't Dumb Down Your Greatness, a young entrepreneur's guide to thinking and being great. It is his motivational blueprint for young entrepreneurs of color, and that document, that text has spread globally. Once again, it's called Don't Dumb Down Your Greatness, a young entrepreneur's guide to thinking and being great by Anthony Frazier, our guest in this hour on KBLA Talk 1580.
We don't try to be all things to all people. We just remain true to who we are. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, reminding you when we fight, we win. Asian Americans Advancing Justice is the nation's largest legal and civil rights organization for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. Founded in 1983 as the Asian Pacific American Legal Center, Advancing Justice LA serves more than 15,000 individuals and organizations every year. Their mission is to advocate for civil rights, provide legal services and education, and build coalitions to positively influence and impact Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, and to create a more equitable and harmonious society. To volunteer, make a donation, or seek assistance, visit advancingjustice-la.org. That's advancingjustice-la.org. Or call 888-349-9695. 888-349-9695. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you a happy holiday and wants to bless you with one night only. A Wonder Winter's Night presented by Stevie Wonder's House Full of Toys benefit concert. Saturday, December 17th at Microsoft Theater. Download the KBLA Talk 1580.com mobile app to enter to win a pair of tickets. This has been a community call to action brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580.
The Institute for Diversity Certification is all about the 3 Ds: dedication, determination, and discipline. Learn more about our globally recognized diversity certification program today by calling 1-800-983-6192. Again, 1-800-983-6192, or visit diversitycertification.org. As the #1 organization for certified diversity professionals and also certified diversity executive credentials, diversitycertification.org will provide an opportunity for you to demonstrate dedication to the field, determination to make progress, and more discipline to your process. Go today and learn more about the diversity certification system. Call 1-800-983-6192. Again, 1-800-983-6192. Or go to diversitycertification.org. That's diversitycertification.org. The standard of excellence, equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Anthony Frazier, got a few minutes left in our conversation, which I've enjoyed immensely. I hope the audience has as well, learning more about this this game-changing man, black man named Jerry Lawson, who is the Google Doodle of the day on what would have been his 82nd birthday. Jerry Lawson, let me close our conversation where we began, talking about Jerry building a radio station in his house at age 13 and getting a license to broadcast from his bedroom again at age 13. It's clear to me that it did not require a traditional education. As you mentioned earlier, Jerry didn't finish school. It did not require a traditional education for Jerry Lawson to do the great work and to build the systems that he constructed. I guess what I'm saying is, speaking of good luck versus a good God, you can create your own luck. Never mind your background or your lack of experience. I know you discuss these kinds of topics all the time when you're presenting on your book, Don't Dumb Down Your Greatness, a young entrepreneur's guide to thinking and being great. So very quickly, what have you learned over the course of your tech journey about what it does, in fact, require to be successful as an African American in this industry?
Oh, man, it just takes a lot of positive energy, keeping that positive momentum in your brain, but it also takes a good team. You can't do it alone, and right now at ABF Creative, Wanda Reynolds, Mike Basiglia, Yona, all these different people who are our team, who comprise of my team at ABF Creative, none of this would be possible. And then also Gary Swaby, the individual who helped me write the podcast. Mm-hmm. None of this would be possible without team, and that's what I've learned in my journey. It's really just finding the right people. They always say you are who you hang around, mm-hmm. and that's true, and that's how I was able to go far, because I've always found a really good way to be around the right people.
Yeah. This Google Doodle of the Day celebrating Jerry Lawson is a huge moment for him, for his family, for his legacy. But I'm curious as to how hopeful you are that in the coming months and years, we will ever see the real story of Jerry Lawson. Do you hope and suspect that one day, like Hidden Figures, we'll see the Jerry Lawson story?
I think it's coming. And that's one thing. I think we're going to see it from multiple people, but I can promise you that I'm not stopping. Mm-hmm. And we're going to continue to tell this story at ABF Creative. We are, working to see what we can do to bring it to life in so many other ways. But I do also want to say that I spoke to Anderson Lawson, Jerry's son, mm-hmm. just a few days ago. And they have a foundation called the Lawson Foundation for Diversity. So it's called GeraldLawsonFoundation.org. And so I at least wanted to make sure that people wanted to follow up on what's going on with his family and his legacy. You can always find it at GeraldLawsonFoundation.org as well.
You're a good man, Anthony Frazier. You are a good man. After all that conversation, to, again, share the information that will support his work and support the work his family's doing to expand and to grow and to seed his legacy. You're a good brother, and I'm honored to have had you on this program. Anthony Frazier, a black tech and media entrepreneur from Newark, New Jersey, created and narrated Raising the Game, an Audible original podcast. He's the CEO of ABF Creative, an award-winning kids and family podcast company with a great team, as you heard him say a moment ago, and the author of the critically acclaimed text, Don't Dumb Down Your Greatness, a young entrepreneur's guide to thinking and being great in the years to come. When you hear the name Jerry Lawson, you'll know where you heard it first on KBLA Talk 1580. Anthony, thank you for your work, brother. Good to have you on this program.
Thank you for your work, man. Salute to everything you've done for us. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Hour 3 of Tavis Smiley after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the